Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, the #1 YouTube channel for you to level up your communication skills, learn the art of public speaking, social skills, and personal branding to take your message to the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit subscribe right on below for 3 weekly videos on how to improve your public speaking, your social skills, and your digital presence. For today's episode, we're entering the world of personal branding, and I'm going to be teaching you how to be a consistent creator. In the traditional eyes, rappers, musicians, boy bands, etc., they're not seen to have a very long lifespan. And when they do have a long lifespan, we celebrate them. Guys like Jay-Z, he's been in the rap game for so many years. Madonna, when we see individuals like that who seem to be very rare, we're starting to think, wow, they've been consistent for a very, very long period of time. But if you think about it, content creation isn't necessarily like sports. Because with sports, there is a certain time limit. Most of the famous athletes say to the younger athletes, look, Father Time does not discriminate against anyone, which is basically translation for, you're going to get old. With content creation though, there's no such thing as getting old. Truth be told, it's more like you age like fine wine. You can keep getting better and better and better, especially with storytelling. Because once you start breaking down storytelling, you start realizing that your stories, it's about you. And if you start thinking about that little statement right there, you start realizing, okay, so if it's about me, I'm not dying anytime soon if I'm still alive. So I'm stacking up more and more experiences. And the more experiences that you stack up, the more perspective that you gain. And the more perspective that you gain, the more content for your stories that you have. So in terms of content creation, you should never be slowing down. You should never be speeding up way too much either. Instead, you want the right rhythm, the right pattern, so you can be consistent for a very, very long period of time. One of the worst things that you can do is measure yourself by your subscriber numbers and your follower numbers. That's not the correct way to do it, because eventually you're going to start realizing that your subscriber numbers and your follower numbers, it's very, very sporadic. It's sort of like waves. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's low. So do you want these waves to dictate your emotions? You don't want that to be the case. So Armani, if I'm now going to measure myself by my follower numbers or my subscriber numbers, then what do I measure myself by? Your consistency. How often are you doing what you said that you were going to do? If you can measure yourself by consistency, then you're going to be in it for the very, very long run. You're not just going to make 30 tweets in one day, then disappear for the next 6 months. You're going to consistently write at least 5 tweets every single day. Isn't that a way better strategy? It is. Today's episode isn't just about content creation, although it's heavily catered towards that. You can also use a lot of these tips into building a new habit for your personal life. Pick up a good habit, drop a bad habit. And the only way that you're going to do that is by being consistent. So let's get started. What's holding people back from consistency? Well, in the very beginning stages, it's going to be our ego. Our ego is something that is very, very complex. It likes to go from different thoughts. It likes to juggle different things. And when you have this sort of mentality in terms of content creation or in terms of picking up a new habit, what happens is that you try to do a lot. You start measuring your success based off of how much you're doing. So let's say you're trying to start a YouTube channel. You have yet to make a single video. You haven't uploaded at all yet. And you're starting to think, well, I want to do daily videos for 30 minutes. and you're like to your ego, is that the right thing to do? And your ego's like, yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing. And what you'll realize is that you can do this for a certain amount of time. In the beginning of your journey, when you have the most enthusiasm, you can do that. You can make 30-minute videos every single day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or however much energy you have in that beginning stage. But as time starts to go on by, a part of you is going to think, dang man, today is such a nice weather. I mean, today's a Tuesday. I don't know, man. Today's nice weather, Tuesday. It doesn't seem like a good day to upload a YouTube video. Now, part of you knows that that's a very ridiculous excuse to make, yet the part of you that's been working so hard for such a long period of time is like, no, that's very valid. And eventually what's going to happen is that you started off very, very energized in the beginning stages. In the middle, you're slowing down. And by the third tier, you just stop for a very long period of time. That consistency that you had in the beginning stages is now consistently gone. So the number one thing that you have to realize, and it doesn't matter if it's for content creation, doing YouTube videos, or any other skill set, your ego is going to try to convince you to do a lot. It's going to equate a lot with quality, while in reality, that's not the case. If you are doing deliberate practice, not just the regular practice, but deliberate practice, then you don't need a very, very long time to practice in the first place. What's the difference between regular practice and deliberate practice? Well, regular practice is what the masses do. They pretty much just show up and their body is there. However, their mind is not there. So let's say you're trying to practice free throws. Well, you're just sort of aimlessly shooting the ball from the free throw line. Will that help? Maybe. But for deliberate practice, what you do is you're not just practicing with the body, you're practicing with the mind. That's the main difference. With regular practice, your mind is absent. With deliberate practice, your mind is there. So for this guy who is doing deliberate practice with their free throws, what he or she is doing is that they have a certain measurement that they want, and they want to make sure that their form is beautiful. So while this guy is practicing for 2 hours in a very sloppy way, this guy is only practicing for 30 minutes every single day to make sure his form is perfect. So if you can adopt the deliberate practice route, you realize that you don't need to be practicing for 6-7 hours a day. You just need to get your mind involved in it. So when you start realizing this, you start realizing, okay, so I'm basically hearing that I can do less with higher quality. Yes, that's exactly what you want to realize. Now, once you understand that deliberate practice is the route that you're going to be taking, now the next stage in terms of consistency is realizing that during your deliberate practice, you need to be zoned in. A few days ago, I wrote a tweet about how if you want to pick up a new routine, it's very, very strategic to have a timer in the very beginning stages. Why? Because naturally, your mind doesn't like deliberate practice. Your mind just wants to be aimless, just all over the place. It likes to be sloppy. So when you have a timer and you say, no, for this particular block, I'm going to make sure that I am just practicing free throws. That's it. When you give your mind commands like that, what happens is that it starts paying attention. It's like, wait a minute, Billy is serious about this today. He really wants to get this done. All right, I'll listen. But you're just saying it's for 30 minutes, right? Yeah, it's just for 30 minutes. Okay, sounds good. I'm in it. And for 30 minutes, you are completely focused in terms of shooting your free throws. And once you do that, the third part is to rest. That's it. Okay? So if you want to be consistent, I just want to give you a little framework. Adopt deliberate practice. That's the mentality that you want to have. whether it's YouTubing, whether it's blogging, whether it's podcasting, or any other habit out there, you want to say, look, when I am practicing, when I am working on the craft, my mind is going to be in it. I'm not just going to be physically present, I'm going to be mentally present, so I have no other choice but to also be physically present. That is the deliberate practice mentality. That's part one. Part two is that you have to block away certain periods of time. In the beginning stages, you may not have a clue how much time to specifically book off because you don't know how long a certain task may take. And that's normal. So before using the timer, you may just want to use the stopwatch. So let's just go back to that free throw example. Imagine that you want to make 50 particular free throws. Well, in this case, instead of running a timer, just run a stopwatch to get a rough estimate for how long this particular task takes. In terms of my life, every single morning when I wake up, I do my best to write 10 tweets on Buffer, the Twitter automation tool. Well, what I start to realize is that after multiple times using the stopwatch, I realize that for the most part, it takes me 15 minutes to get through 10 tweets and edit them. So nowadays, after noticing that pattern multiple amount of times, I set a 15-minute timer in the morning when I write my 10 tweets. So for this section, you may want to start off with the stopwatch and work your way up to the timer. But whatever this case is, you are locked in the zone. And then the third part, some individuals, they like to call it reward. I just like to call it rest. Once you have done proper deliberate practice, a part of you feels as though you're a little exhausted because you've put a lot of mental faculties into this task. So go on and chill for a little bit. You don't want to associate just hard work with this task. You want to realize that it's work hard and play hard as well. This doesn't mean to just go on and act like an idiot. Instead, just realize, look, I gave myself a strong practice session today, and I can give myself a pat on the back. A simple pat on the back is a form of rest technique because it allows you to associate positive emotions with this new habit. And after some time, you're going to notice yourself being more and more consistent by simply adopting the deliberate practice mentality, setting away a lot of time for reduced compact times, setting a timer and making sure that you keep executing your blocks, and then afterwards acknowledging the beauty that you just did. If you can do this, you eventually start turning your routines into rituals. What's the difference? Well, routines, if you think about it, the word sounds so boring. It's just routine. Yeah, I'm being very, very routine. Some of you guys may like that. But for me, when I hear rituals, something about that has more fire to it. It paints the perceptions towards a positive light. And I feel as though once I've been doing a routine for a very, very long period of time, eventually it becomes a ritual. And when something turns into a ritual in my world, I don't mess with it because it's something that I consider sacred. Turn your routines into rituals, and eventually you're going to find it difficult not to be consistent. So that's the main thing that you want to take away from this video. Doing a lot does not equate to quality. Just because you're physically there does not mean that you are mentally there. Keep working, but don't work so hard to a point where you just burn yourself out and you quit later on in the game. Keep yourself consistent. Have small blocks that you warm yourself up to. Work on these fundamentals. And the more that you start working on the fundamentals, eventually you start realizing that these fundamentals start to grow and grow and grow until you have developed a whole new beast. Be consistent, always show up, and always show out. If today's episode helped you, make sure you drop a like right on below. And thank you for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel.